This week, the agenda visited the intersection between connectedness and privacy, pondered the future of Ontario's PC party, and explored Queen's Park with a group of new MPPs. But the agenda's week in review begins with the risks and realities of Ebola.
The international community's reaction to dealing with all of this, how would you characterize it?
Staggeringly slow. In some ways, I kind of understand it. This has been just an astronomically bad year. When you think about all of the things that have happened, the shooting down of the plane in Ukraine and Russia, Syria, ISIS. I mean, there are so many non-health problems that have been going on. And then on the health front, in February and early March, there was H7N9 bird flu in China. And after that, people started to become aware that there was this Ebola outbreak. And then all of a sudden, MERS, Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, exploded in Saudi Arabia. And, the people who take care of this at the WHO, they're all pretty much the same people. So, they're running this way one day, running that way the next day. And it's just hard to keep track of all of this stuff. So in some ways, it is understandable. That said, I have a lot of sympathy for Dr. Liu. She started calling very early and telling people this is not a typical Ebola outbreak. This one is going to be much bigger, said that MSF could not manage it on its own as it has typically.
Let me ask her, when you put those calls out there, what was the response that you got back, Dr. Liu?
In spring, when we started to discuss that, we, of course, started to do it in a bilateral way. And we were regularly just said, no, you are crying wolf. Then we said it publicly in spring. And again, we were, especially from WHO back then, told that we were crying wolf, and then things were not as bad as this. And even this summer, when I met again with Dr. Chan, and I discussed with her, and I just said, this is really out of control, and something needs to happen. And myself, in my capacity of international president of Médecins Sans Frontières, I can call for a public health emergency, but I don't have neither the authority nor the legitimacy. And so she looked at me and she said, Dr. Liu, I don't think, I'm not pessimistic. And I just said, it's not being pessimistic, Dr. Chan, it's just being realistic. And so we pushed hard, and then finally a week after, she reconvened, and then she called the public health emergency on August 8th.
And have you talked to her since then? This is Margaret Chan from the WHO. Have you talked to her since then?
Yeah, we talked to, but we had to we bumped into each other at the UN briefing September 2nd, and then as well in September 25th at the UN General Assembly.
And did you say to her, damn it, why didn't you listen to me?
I don't think I worded it this way, but I think that she knows what I think. On the other hand, my take on this today is we're so few little actors, and it's so big that I think that we have to not look back but look forward. And then as far as I'm concerned, I think I've told what I have to say to the WHO.
Brian Schwartz, I'd like to get your view on this angle of the story, which is that when Haiti had an earthquake, the world responded. When there is a tsunami in the Far East, the world responds. They put telethons on CNN, for goodness sakes. We're not seeing that this time. Why not?
Well, there's a big bang. There's a plane that crashes into a building, there's a tsunami, there's an earthquake. And it's something, there's a couple of things. We know about it when it happens. By and large, it's not an ongoing threat, although it certainly is. For example, in Haiti, they had a huge outbreak of cholera 6 months later. But people don't feel threatened by that, and they want to help, and they see it's tangible. Outbreaks don't work like that. Outbreaks sneak up on us. They're invisible, and they're frightening, so that there's an ongoing threat, so that people, even if they're well-meaning, and certainly present company on Skype excluded. I mean, Joanne and Tim are extraordinary individuals, and their organizations are extraordinary. But they're in the minority, and people don't have the tendency to step up. I think we've hopefully had a big bang moment with this tsunami of an outbreak.
What would be the big bang moment?
I think I don't know, Helen?
I would say Kent Brantley and Nancy Ritball becoming infected in Sierra Leone, or Liberia, was it? Liberia. The two Americans.
Healthcare workers,
yes,
who got it themselves.
And that's appalling.
Yeah.
That's really appalling. It shouldn't have taken expat workers to get infected for this to become something that the world was paying attention to. That
Maybe
outbreak,
Dallas as well? The nurse in Dallas?
well,
might have helped?
every single time something like this happens, it raises the attention. But I think when the world really started to pay attention was at the end of July, when it became apparent that 2 Americans were being infected and were being repatriated to Emory University Hospital in Atlanta for treatment. That really got attention.
Tim, why do you think the world's been so slow to respond to this, unlike other disasters?
I honestly, I simply don't know. All I can say is it's extremely frustrating. I wish I knew. I wish I could understand why people don't feel the need to participate in this thing, because everything that we're seeing in terms of our intervention has been extremely hopeful and optimistic. When we're providing healthcare and when we're intervening, we're seeing mortality rates decrease significantly. But now when our treatment centers are being overrun, we don't have the option to actually do the work that we can be doing and we should be doing, because we don't have the space for it. So when people are coming in a very treatable phase of this disease and we can't help them, that is turning into a serious ethical dilemma. And this is an ethical dilemma that the entire world has to deal with.
An ethical dilemma, I assume you mean, because you're sending people home sick. Is that right?
Yes. And the only reason we're doing this is because there aren't enough treatment centers there. And this is really problematic. When you have somebody coming in and they can be cured for this disease with the proper treatments and they're not getting it, that is a problem.
So you send them home sick where they infect everybody else?
Well, we don't send them home with nothing. We send them home with as much education as we can. We send them home with some masks, gloves, soap, a bucket, and hope for the best.
Let me read this. This is from the New York Times from last month. Soon, the 2008 global financial crisis struck. The WHO had to cut nearly $1 billion from its proposed 2-year budget, which today stands at nearly $4 billion. By contrast, the budget of the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention for 2013 alone was about $6 billion. The cuts forced difficult choices. More emphasis was placed on efforts like fighting chronic global ailments, including heart disease and diabetes. At the agency's Geneva headquarters, outbreak and emergency response, which was never especially well funded, suffered particularly deep losses, leaving offices that look, one consultant said, like a ghost town. The World Health Organization's Epidemic and Pandemic Response Department, including a network of anthropologists to help overcome cultural differences during outbreaks, was dissolved. Its duties split among other departments. Some of the main outbreak pioneers moved on. Joanne Liu, I should ask you, can the WHO, can its inability to respond appropriately to the Ebola crisis be blamed on some of the things I just read in that paragraph?
I think that in part it can be blamed about it because the WHO has been underfunded recently over the last decade, more or less. And then basically, I would say that WHO has cornered itself in becoming what they call even themselves a normative organization. And they have lost their operational, I would say, capacity. So that's an issue. And this means that the fact that today the WHO is not as operational as it should be is, I would say, a collective failure of states members who underfunded the WHO. So for me, I think one of the biggest lessons learned from this epidemic, although we're not over with it, is the fact that we need to do better the next time, because I don't think it's going to be the last one. And we need to make sure that when it's going to come around again, that we're going to have an international governance that will feel responsible to respond and to organize the response. And that's really key, because in this particular epidemic, no one felt responsible and no one wanted to take the leadership. And I don't think that this should be in the hand of a private international NGO.
Thanks, everybody, for coming to Leaside and having this little get-together so we can find out a little bit more about what it's like to be a rookie of the Ontario Legislature. And I want to start with you, because full disclosure, you and I have known each other a long time. We go way back. And you called me many, many months ago.
I did.
And what did you ask?
Steve, I said, I'm thinking of running for the provincial Liberals.
And what did I say?
You're crazy.
Well, now, in fairness, I didn't say you were crazy until you told me what riding you wanted to run in.
No, that's right. To be fair, I did say, implicit in that was that I was running in Burlington, and you said, you're crazy. Couldn't they perhaps find you another safer seat?
Because when was the last time a Liberal had won Burlington?
71 years.
So I wasn't completely ridiculous to suggest that.
No, you weren't, absolutely not. And with your knowledge of history and knowledge of the arena, certainly you weren't off base. But I guess the people of Burlington made a different decision.
And why did you decide to seek a riding that had not been Liberal in 71 years?
I guess I didn't give that much thought. Over the past couple of elections in Burlington, certainly, the share of the popular vote had been much more progressive than it had been conservative. And we just decided to change the conversation and I think give people the permission to vote a different way. Because there was this sort of prevalence that Burlington was a Tory stronghold. And it certainly was. But in point of fact, again, between us and the NDP last time, we outpaced the progressive conservative vote by 7,000. So what I wanted to do was to say to those folks, hey, maybe you can think about voting Liberal this time. I think we gave them a reason, and I guess the results played that out.
Gotcha. Granville, when was the last time your seat went Liberal?
You know, it's funny, it's 71 years as well, since 1943.
71 years?
Yeah.
So why would you want to run in a seat that, by all rights, you had no chance to win?
You know, that's a good question. I personally felt I had a chance to win it. I'm confident that way. And I started out having my doubts about that and saying I'm a masochist, but but as the campaign progressed, that quickly changed, and I had a lot of young, vibrant young people on board, and they helped me and they energized me and helped change the channel, as Eleanor said, and from there it was all fun and games.
Fun and games,
for the last few weeks, you know, as it progressed, it felt better and better and better, and I felt very confident towards the end. And I'm thankful to the people of Durham for taking a chance and changing political stripes.
They did indeed. Jennifer, you can't say that it's been 71 years since
I
Oshawa was NDP, but it had been almost 20.
Yes.
And when did you get your nomination to run?
1 month before the election.
So May.
Yes.
May of this year.
May 12th.
You got nominated, and then a month later you got elected. Now that's a fairly short span of time. So a lot of people who got nominated a year earlier and campaigned for a year hate you right now. You know that, right?
If that's the only reason they have, I'll take it. So we're good.
Why? Okay, so you're from education, right? You were a teacher?
Yes.
Why did you decide to run?
Well, coming from public education and being part of that system and being part of different communities and seeing some of the realities that families and communities are facing and some of the challenges within the system, I tend to notice problems and I tend to see those challenges. And they say the cracks are how the light gets into something. And I decided to, actually, I just got really frustrated, you know, navigating a system that had challenges, and I wanted to be in a position to address some of them and maybe even fix some one day. So that's kind of took me out of the comfort of a classroom. Well, I don't know if you can say the comfort of a classroom, but to switch gears and reach out on a wider scale.
Sophie, why did you decide to run?
Well, I had been working for 7 years in the federal constituency office, first for Peter Milliken and then for Ted Hsu as his chief of staff, and I knew what it was to provide good service, good public service to constituents. I was concerned, as many of us probably are, about constituents in the riding and what we feel that they need. And I felt that I had the ability, our office had a very good reputation, I had the ability to deliver that good service, so that's why I decided to run.
Gotcha. Indira, second time for you, right?
Yes.
You ran last time?
Yes, I did.
2 elections ago. How close did you get then?
I lost by less than 2% of the overall vote.
So you decided to give it a second shot?
I did. Some people came to me and they said, we think you should do it again. And my family said the same thing. So I knew I had the support I needed. And I have to be honest with you, at first I thought, do I really want to do this again? Because campaigns are a lot of work. But after giving it some thought and realizing how close we had come, and I really believed that Halton should be red, and I wanted to be that change and make sure that that happened. So here we are.
What made you think that the second time around it would be any different a result than the first time around?
Well, we had come close, but the second time around, I frankly, I didn't stop working. So that was 2011, and once I made the decision that I wanted another shot at it, I looked at what I needed to do, and basically it was grassroots work, right? Knocking on doors, going to every single event I could go to, making sure that I talked to all my neighbors and friends, and making sure that people in town knew that it was me, and in the riding knew that it was me that was running. First time around, I think people weren't so sure who that hyphenated last name was. Some people recognized me from my days as a journalist, others didn't.
At TVO?
At TVO, at CBC,
and other
at
places
CTV,
too.
Yes, but yes, you and I worked together. It was amazing.
Back in the day.
Back in the day, that's right. So this time around, just worked solidly and hard, and you know, with a little bit of hope and a dream and believing in yourself and believing in the support that we had in our premier, it all worked out.
Senora Vernile.
Si.
You also are an ex-journalist. Why would you want to leave the glories of journalism for the misery of politics?
And it was a one-way journey, because I knew that when I was headed in that direction, I was pulling the plug and I could not go back. Once you declare that you are a political candidate, you've shown the world you have political stripes, you cannot go back to being a journalist, and that's that. But for me, it started with a phone call on a Monday morning from a Liberal strategist. And I actually thought he was calling to complain about an interview that had just aired the night before on Province-Wide, a show that I produced and anchored for 29 years at CTV Kitchener. This interview with the Premier, and I thought he was going to say, "Why are you so mean? Why are you so aggressive?" Because I would get calls like that from time to time. But that's not why he was calling. He was letting me know that they were looking for candidates in Kitchener-Waterloo, and he let me know off the record that John Malloy, the longtime MPP, Liberal MPP for Kitchener Centre, was not going to be running again. And they needed someone new, and he said, "Your name came right to the top of the list." And so I said, "Well, that's not why I thought you were calling." He said, "Well, listen, at least you need to sit down and talk with us, talk to the Premier, and it's not an interview where you come with a TV camera. Talk to her about running and leadership and other issues." So I did that meeting, and I have to say that working in the industry for 36 years, and I'm an old cynical reporter, and I just have not been inspired by anything in a long time. After that chat with her, I went home and my husband said, "What do you think?" And I said, "You know what, John? I think I'm going to do this."
The issue is that, as you know, success doesn't breed excitement, or failure doesn't breed excitement, and so the four election losses, it becomes a smaller and smaller family, and some of those schisms that go back decades, you know, the Miller folks and the Timbrell folks, and you know, it comes out. And so I think that's why this next period of time is so important, because the fact of the leadership and how one wins one means there'll be more members coming in, and that brings fresh blood and fresh people, in addition to the folks who've been the stalwarts of the party, and those things that were so important when you have a small group. I think the point you made is, you know, you need to reflect the province to some degree, and the party today in its membership doesn't reflect the province.
David.
What I've always found very interesting, and kind of building on what Rod is saying, is that the Conservatives used to be the party of urban and the emerging Ontario, and the Liberals were the party of rural Ontario. And that really changed somewhere in that 1980s period, really beginning with Stuart Smith. Stuart Smith went to recruit candidates like Ian Scott, like Eleanor Kaplan, and then David Peterson kind of built on that and established stronger roots within urban and suburban Ontario. And, you know, the inheritors, Lynn MacLeod, Dalton McGuinty, picked up on that. The Conservatives gone almost the opposite direction. Bill Davis had built a juggernaut in Toronto, in urban Ontario, and Frank Miller, and then others really have looked to consolidate their bases in other parts of the province.
Your cell phone is ringing. That's hilarious. I don't think we've ever... Have we had that happen on this show before? I'm trying to remember.
Uh-oh.
Because Richard called him just now.
I'm pretty sure that was his mother. I'm pretty sure that was his mother, Eleanor Kaplan, saying, "Don't mention my name on the show." Anyway,
I apologize. And Mom, I'm sorry. But the reality is that that's how the Conservatives had built their vote coalition and built their success for decades. And seemingly that's gone gone almost in the opposite direction.
I know Richard's quite right. It is a bit simplistic to say it's sort of the red Tories versus the more rural, small C conservatives. But the fact is, those are the two, I think the fact is anyway, Robin, those are the two main overarching tribes, if you like to put it that way, in the PC party, and have been sort of fighting for supremacy within the party for a half a century. That's fair to say, isn't it?
Well, certainly there is a way of looking at it and analyzing it which says that. I don't really see that as being at all a relevant issue for the party right now. I think what the party, the factions that Richard is talking about, in my mind, are more people who are around various leadership candidates, if you will, their teams, which party members don't really get a say in who's on the team. and that may be the issue, that the team, once the leader is picked, the team sort of goes into, okay, now we're managing the leader's reputation, etc. And that, I think that can be the issue. I think what we need to do is make sure that we pick a leader who has a team that is maybe an open team, who is willing to take input and to go out and listen to people who maybe haven't been members of the PC party in the past and we would like to be members in the future, and talk to those people. And I think that kind of an open discussion, not so much with the overarching red Tory and blue Tory, because I don't think those things matter. I mean, we lost a leadership race election under John Tory. We lost an election under Tim Hudak. You could say that they are representatives of both sides of that spectrum, and I don't think that was the issue.
Fair enough, but yes, but for different reasons. You lost those elections for different reasons, and let me just, at the risk of ticking all of you off, go through a bit of a checklist here. 2014, you lost the election, I suggest, in large measure because of the promise to eliminate 100,000 positions in the public service. But if you go back, in 2003, Dalton McGuinty's first election win, there was that comment about McGuinty that I guess a lot of people thought went over the line about the
eating aliens.
Reptilian,
I have the T-shirt, by the way.
Reptilian kitten eating, whatever it was. 2007, it was the faith-based funding promise that obviously did not find favor. 2011, foreign workers, some anti-gay leaflet drops in Toronto, chain gangs. I mean, a lot of stuff that seemed to be sort of wedge issue stuff. Rod, does this party have to learn how not to shoot itself in the foot all the time?
To me, it gets back to what is a party for, right? What I see in all those examples in different ways is not feeling the pulse of what people want. So when we talk about the 100,000 jobs in the last campaign, there was a lack of connection to the economic insecurity, frankly, that is still resident in the province, and that the fact that was made a focal point said that we aren't in touch with what people are feeling sufficiently. And I think you could go any of those examples and I think use that, but that's what a party is for. And it's got to be a functioning party. And I think there's been some of the comments that make sense about why it might not be functioning. And obviously the leader is one important part of that, but a party that's in touch, that understands the nuances of what's going on in all these communities, at least the ones in the electoral combination that it needs, but presumably across the province, isn't going to be making those kinds of mistakes over and over again.
Can you speak to this notion of parties shooting themselves in the foot all the time? I mean, these are the worst injuries in politics, right? The ones that you're responsible for doing to yourself. Mm-hmm. How do you avoid that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think some of it is just not being aligned with the voters. But the other thing is understanding who you're up against. Who is your adversary? And I think that, going back to the leadership race and where the party is right now, is a big question, because they're faced with a Liberal government that, albeit went into the last election on a very progressive footing, but is facing also now is going to be cutting $2 billion in public services. There's going to be a fire sale of public assets, and so this party. This is the talk, right? Mm-hmm. So where does this party also position itself in relation to that, and how in touch are they with the reality of Ontarians today? And I think part of the problem, as we were talking about earlier, is you get these little factions that come in to control the messaging and the communication. And And sometimes they get it wrong. And in this case, I think they've gotten it wrong a number of times. And so they need fresh blood. They need, and also at the end of a leadership race, they need to heal the rifts, because there will be rifts. There will be some divisions, and exactly, whoever comes in as the next leader needs to be welcoming of everyone and be the voice that represents a broader swath of that party.
Have Conservatives, Richard, had a particular problem, Ontario Conservatives had a particular problem coming together after leadership campaigns?
I think there's been some of that, and it's not, I don't think it's for lack of desire by the folks necessarily on the losing side. It's not that they're sore losers, as it were. I think some of it is sore winners, if you know what I mean. It's where, again, this phenomenon where it's like, okay, we got the person we want as leader, and now we're going to cocoon them, and we're going to control them, and we're going to keep everybody else who could contribute out. That's a little bit of what I've seen the last little bit.
But that's the nature of leadership politics, and it's not just the Conservatives. I'm sure in the New Democrats, I know for sure in the Liberal Party, that those kind of dynamics exist. There's hard feelings, there's divisions. These contests within the family are the most difficult because people get divided, and there are very hard feelings that develop.
That at least I know on the Conservative side would be, and exactly going back to the time where we had a great deal of success, would be Bill Davis. Did a very good job of reaching out to the Alan Lawrence people and bringing them in and building a much bigger and more successful tent for the party. And I think, again, that ability it's not that you want people who are on the winning side of leadership to be then, okay, you dance with the ones that brung you in politics. I understand, everybody does, but you also build a bigger team and a bigger tent, and that's where it seems we've really failed as a party in recent history.
That's certainly what you need to do.
I didn't, for instance, in my case, I didn't support Tim Hudak in the last leadership. I supported another leadership candidate. I then, okay, we went through an election, we lost. I then put myself forward in perfectly good faith as a party president and to try and support. And even in that context, I was still excluded.
Before we get into dissecting the internet, which is what we're going to spend the next 40 minutes or so doing, I just want to play a minute from the documentary Life After Digital. Take a look at this.
Intrusions on our privacy are not the exception. They are the rule. Because the harvesting of our personal information is now a massive industry worth hundreds of billions of dollars.
If you spend a few hours on the internet, you are being mined thousands of times. And the data that are being mined are data like where you visited, in what order, how long you stayed on certain pages, how you compare to other people in your neighborhood, what your preferences are, what you bought, who you talked to, for how long, or your personal information, banking, financial information, tastes, who you know, who you date.
The data mining industry takes in thousands of companies who have almost unlimited power to extract personal information from us. From every text, every post, every share, every like, and every search. And it happens without our knowledge or permission.
Is the internet, it's a seductive medium. Is social media seducing us into revealing just too much about ourselves?
I think the opportunity that social media presents is a renegotiation of intimacy. I think that we have this opportunity with social media to somehow, or what we think we have the opportunity to do, is to control our relationships. It used to be if you were trapped in a small town, you really only had that community to deal with. Or if you were in a big city, you might feel anonymous. Social media allows us to reach out to people and make connections with them, but connections that we at least have the illusion of controlling. So it's seductive in that it gives you the feeling that you're creating this magical personal brand for yourself by giving up all kinds of information, and that you yourself are unique and special and different and awesome, when in fact you are mostly like just everybody else on social media.
Okay. Mitch, I want to pick up on that because in a way, social media, we think we're in control, but it's actually the power dynamic is sort of out of our hands, as we heard in that clip. Are we revealing too much of ourselves, either deliberately or not deliberately, when it comes to social media?
I don't think it's about disclosure of who we are or anything like that. I think the fundamental challenge that we have is we have this term social media. Everybody understands what it means to be social. Very few people understand what it means to be a media. And
what do you mean?
Well, if I'm talking to you candidly in the corner about a situation I'm in and we're having a very social understanding, that's great. I can go on Facebook and have that as well. When I have that on Facebook or any other social platform, it's not a social interaction, it's a media interaction. I'm both a publisher, a broadcaster, an engager, because that information is no longer shared just between two parties. And if you look at it from that construct, it is neither good nor bad, it's ambiguous. It's our inability to understand the difference between a social interaction and a media-based interaction.
Okay, Isabel, where do you come down on this? What does social media reveal about what we're revealing to the world?
Well, to follow Mitch's point, I think that is true, but the problem is that we're sort of told to broadcast the self, where we're constantly encouraged that, you know, we are to share ourselves, and we're not given the message that this is media, or that we should refrain from doing that, or we should be careful about it. But I think what we're really undergoing is this era of sort of technogenesis, and it's happening so rapidly that we really can't understand or really deal with what's happening to us. I mean, if you think about the iPod itself was released in 2001. By 2007, there were 100 million iPods sold. That was sort of a launch pad for the iPhone. In 7 years, there are now 500 million iPhones sold. So in 10 years, we've gone through this extreme process of change without really coming up with strategies to deal with it and tactics.
Isabel, I want to ask, we were talking about technology and not being able to swipe TVs and swipe TVs.
Yeah.
What the heck are you wearing on you there?
I'm wearing a life logging camera. So much of my research over the past 10 or 15 years has been on wearable tech and this sort of future that we're expecting to come to fruition, that we're going to be wearing our technology. So this is a life logging camera. It takes a picture, two pictures every minute, two photos, and you can download it and sort of log your life.
You're logging me right now.
I'm logging you.
I have not given you my consent to do that.
That's
though,
right.
Which raises an interesting thing, which you said earlier, you know, Mitch, that we are giving our consent. I'm not giving Isabel my consent. She can go log her life and I can be part of that. I got no control.
Happened with traditional cameras too.
I'm a social critic when it comes to this kind of technology, right? I've been tracking the idea of life logging, that you can store a whole digital life to your computer, and really questioning, you know, is that memory? Is that digital life? What is the loss if we do that? If we start to equate our memory with just static imagery, what's happening there? This technology originally was proposed by the Army, by DARPA, who had planned to collect a whole digital life, right? So the idea was that a general we needed to save all of the intelligence that a general had. So we would collect everything that a general saw, everywhere he went or she went, every television show she watched, and store it in a digital life. And it evolved into My Life Bits technology and Gordon Bell, and now it's finally emerged as a computer consumer device. So now everyone can be a life logger.
Who needs memories if you got that?
Who needs memories? So that's the kind of paradigm I'm trying to question.
Come to any conclusions?
That we're both humanized and dehumanized by this, right? That if we're all wearing technology all the time, what is remembering? What is nostalgia? What is creativity?
You know, it's interesting that we're talking about what is nostalgia, what is emotion, what is that, and we're looking forward a little bit. But if, you know, we have been having this conversation for a decade. The internet was only invented 23 years ago. Mitch, you know, how are looking forward 20 years? I mean, how do you see digital technologies changing our world? No one could anticipate what we've had in the last 20 years, but I want you to anticipate what we might see.
Yeah, it's hard. I often tell people that I'm not a futurist, I'm a presentist. I'm really good, I think, at seeing what we're using today and how it impacts us and what it means to business and individuals. And I frame this by two stories. One is, you know, the iPad didn't exist 4 years ago. And if you just think about how decentralized we become as just even a workforce, the fact we don't have to like, I gotta check my email, like how archaic that is. And then I think about even YouTube. And when I first saw it, and I saw a 2x2 screen with buffering issues, and I thought, no one will ever watch this. It's terrible. You can get a massive flat screen for $600. Why would you do this? And so I think it is tremendously challenging, in particular because of things like wearable technology, the impact of data and information, and then just this sort of convergence of these physical and real worlds to see where we're going. And you could say all sorts of things in terms of healthcare and things like that. And we've had pacemakers forever. So when we talk about what is our digital memories, I would say, what is life? If you're being kept alive by a digital pacemaker, what does that say about humanity? And these are things that, again, we've been dealing with for decades.
Okay, Madeline, you get the last word. Where are we going in the next 20 years? What are you thinking?
Well, I am a futurist. I'm a paid futurist. When people employ me, that's what they're buying. And so in about 20 years, we're going to see things like the advent of the Internet of Things, where all of your devices and all of even your clothes and all of your other handheld devices and things like that start talking to each other as things like interfaces go away and they become more tactile and more physical and more embodied, so that you looking at a screen or you looking at paper is slowly going to go away in the favor of you having contacts or glasses or wearables or things like that that relay that information to you, including social information. So really the future is going to look like the opening of Cinderella, where or like Disney's, but better example is Disney's Beauty and the Beast, where all of the things in the house are alive, and they're helping you, and they're also reporting on your behavior to the beast.
That's the Agenda's Week in Review, and you can see all of those programs in their entirety on our website, theagenda.tvo.org, on our iTunes channel, and on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/theagenda.
Support Ontario's public television. Donate at tvo.org.